internet, and welcome to the very second episode of a specific topic. Over a year ago I made a little video regarding a sound effect that has been haunting me for my entire life, and at the time I was expecting to start a bit of a conversation with a few hundred people to see whether anyone else recognised the same thing as me, absolutely convinced that I was the only person afflicted by the specific awareness of a particular noise. If I'd have known that I was actually opening the door to a support group for over 1 million people who've been driven insane by overused sound effects, I probably would have taken the opportunity to moan a bit more while it was still my turn to speak. And so today, guided by your suggestions and my own evil brain, which seems to want to ceaselessly torture me by noticing the most petty and insignificant things on the planet, I've taken it upon myself to compile this video featuring some of the most horrendously overused and abused noises in modern media. But it's not just movies, TV shows and games that are plagued by these devilish earworms, no, but these tiresome, repetitive sounds have started to take over social media too, with some sounds and noises that I've heard so many times they've been permanently burnt onto the surface of my brain. I sometimes wake up in a cold sweat, hearing them go round and round in my mind. They've been forever etched onto our collective cultural consciousness. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. So the exact same day that I secured a sponsorship from the chart-topping mobile game Raid Shadow Legends, so I've decided it would be fun to put my smartphone in with the laundry. Whilst it is now exceptionally clean, the downside I suppose is that it's now full of water and it doesn't actually switch on, so I can't play Raid Shadow Legends without the aid of some camera wizardry. Raid Shadow Legends is a turn-based action game in which you build a team of heroes and battle against waves of enemies in a variety of gorgeous locations, defeating bosses, collecting loot and completing quests to improve your skills and equipment. It's now also available for PC and other desktop devices. Oh, so I won't actually be needing this then? Well, that's a spot of luck. It's completely free to download, and I've even managed to work my way through the fully voiced campaign without needing to make any in-game purchases. There has also recently been a new patch to the game that adds a lot of new features, like tournament mode with the Arena Onslaught, Dragon Tournament and Champion Chase, in which you can compete against other players to earn even more rewards and loot. I'm currently in first place, obviously, because I'm such a hardcore gamer, but don't worry, you could definitely come second or something. You can find me in the game under the name Sir Snackington, and if you're quick enough, you can even join my clan. Go to the video's description and click on my special links, and if you're a new player, within 30 days you'll receive some amazing bonuses. 100,000 silver, 2 clan boss keys, 10 mystery shards, and 1 free champion, the Adjudicator. And I don't even have her. I had to grind on my playthrough with Athel. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Hopefully now I can get a replacement for my very clean and very broken phone. So in the comments of the previous video, a lot of you expressed an extremely passionate hatred for certain sounds, like the bass drop. A sound which has plagued action movies and trailers alike for over a decade now. It's been through various iterations over this time, but is most famously attributed to Christopher Nolan's Inception, which had its very own bump interpretation. Although there's lots of dispute about the actual point of origin of the use of deep audio punctuation, some attributing it to the trailer for Michael Bay's Transformers, although I'd rather pretend that that movie doesn't exist. However, I also don't want to say this irritating audial phenomenon is the responsibility of Hans Zimmer either, because I actually like him. Regardless of whose fault it is, whenever I hear it, I can't help but imagine a giant brass god stood out on the horizon, leaning forward in a powerful stance and parting its enormous metallic butt cheeks and letting loose a tsunami-instigating wave of flatulence. Other key complaints were about sounds like the passing trucker horn, generic thunder, that eagle, the dying woman. And I received over 70 comments about the Johnny Test whip crack. And whilst these are definitely key offenders in the overused sound effects universe, they haven't bothered me nearly as much as the list I've compiled for today's video. Video games seem to be the origin point of many of my audio woes, and I think that's because typically in the games of yesteryear, the sound design wasn't particularly complex, and so you'd most likely hear each individual sound effect isolated as you played through the game. Also, because of the fairly limited range of sound effects that each game uses, they'd be heard repeatedly and so frequently that they could easily embed themselves into your mind.
Hello, Gordon!
So, let's do an experiment. I'm going to play a sound for you, and you should shout out the name of the game that it's from, out loud, like an insane person.
Where's that sound from?
Yes, correct. Those sneaky little bullets were the silenced shots, which are instantly recognisable from GoldenEye on N64. But you'd also be right if you said Time Splitters 2. a game developed by Free Radical Design, a group of ex-Rare employees who worked on GoldenEye and obviously took the prized dossier full of sound effects with them when they escaped Rare's evil clutches. These precise sounds themselves actually featured in the movie GoldenEye, as the sound library for the N64 game was built up using the sound effects from the movie it was based on, probably due to something boring like licensing costs, but I'll just pin it down to spite. But this isn't its actual point of origin. The ricochets in question are part of a collection which was compiled back in 1990 and consists of a selection of rather cartoonish, dumb ricochet noises popularly used back in the golden era of Warner Brothers cartoons, but then also a handful of more realistic modern interpretations of the noise. The first instance of these newer ricochet sounds being used were in a particularly dreadful movie titled Run, which was released in 1991, but the less we look at that, the better. It's also found its way into more decent movies since. The silenced shots that caused the ricochet, however, have plagued media for decades, first appearing in James Bond's Live and Let Die, and then proceeding to feature in pretty much every single action movie ever made since. Now, I know, reusing gun noises in particular isn't something to get caught up about. After all, each gun has its own distinct sound when it's fired, and there's not really much room for creative input and variety when it comes to sound editing in that regard. But silencers don't even fucking exist. They're not real. Sure, suppressors exist and can slightly reduce the colossal sound made when a gun is fired.
It's not super loud,
but not to the hypo-diminished whisper that allows Mr. Bond or walking dead man Sean Bean to sneak around the baddie's lair, meticulously slaughtering all of the employees without letting off even a hint that something has gone awry. This is just sheer movie nonsense. Which is my main grievance with this particular sound. It's not so much the fact that it's overused, even though it almost certainly is, but it's more due to the fact that it's completely fictitious and just a convenient, lazy plot device used in action movies to help do some sneaky, stealthy murder before the action really begins and everything inevitably explodes. This wispy little piss of a noise is just as effective at shattering my immersion and trashing the movie's credibility as it is at muting the noise of gunpowder exploding.
It's done.
Gunpowder doesn't explode, it burns. The noise is actually created by a rapid expansion of gas.
Yes, I know how to use Google too, it's just quicker to say exploding.
Where's that sound from?
So that metal clang sound effect was first brought to my attention in the opening title screen of Crash Bandicoot on PS1. And whilst this one is used fairly widely, it's limited to mostly appearing in animated kids content. And so I can almost forgive it. There isn't much incentive for creators to produce original sounds for all these movies and shows, and whilst I wish they would at least edit and rework the noise in some way to make it sound more original, I'm not going to get too cross at them for taking the easy way out.
Where's that sound from?
Now this one is a bit of a trick question and is way more subjective than any of the other ones, as this exact pottery breaking noise has featured in over 100 different games. I distinctly remember it from Hitman Codename 47. Although you'd be correct if you said any of a variety of other incredibly popular gaming franchises like Sonic, Tekken, Resident Evil, Rayman, Super Smash Bros, Tao Feng, Fist of the Lotus, because you definitely all remember that one. Because it features in so many games, the noise itself has become somewhat of a goofy meme, but I'm still absolutely disgusted that it's also ended up in a whole bunch of movies too. I do understand that sometimes it's not possible to record the actual noises that occur on set, or the real noise that does happen isn't iconic sounding enough, or perhaps some productions simply can't afford to get a Foley artist in for every tiny little noise that they want to include in the movie, but these noises are so distinctive and recognisable that I will always notice, and it will always take me out of the experience of watching the film.
Where's that sound from?
This sound has been used in a few different games too, but is most popularly recognised from the Super Smash Bros series. This one falls into the same category as the cheering crowd sound from my previous video. There's just something inherently patronising and irritating about hearing a clearly fake human reaction. If it was used ironically for comedic effect in a sort of fourth wall breaking, this is a piece of shit production kind of a way, then I can kind of see it working. but in any other circumstance it only stands to piss me off.
Where's that sound from?
Yes, you're right, that was the Diddy laugh, which first poisoned most people's minds on the opening screen for Diddy Kong Racing on the N64. TV advertising is absolutely rife with the Diddy laugh and has been for many years, and whilst it's quite possibly the most recognisable and annoying laugh ever recorded, I can kind of forgive adverts a little bit. They're just trying to shift products to kids and don't have a lot of budget to work with when it comes to things like sound design. But fully produced movies, however, I consider it to be an unforgivable sin to make use of the Diddy laugh. Yet again, there's different levels of severity. If it's in kids animated content, I can kind of get over it. But when it's in a rather serious, dramatic, gritty, action-packed movie, it just beggars belief. Why on earth it appears in movies like Taken or Rambo is completely beyond me. Have these filmmakers got no dignity at all? Do they want me to take the plight of their lead muscle face seriously? Or do they want me to be thinking about how fucking shit I am at Diddy Kong Racing the entire time? It's become the calling card for any quintessentially lazy, cliched filmmaker at this point, most often used when the protagonist is having a flashback to the faceless, nameless children they've presumably got waiting for them back at home. Someone to return to once they're done murdering everyone in the movie. Although this sound is supposed to elicit that yearning for an escape from this conflict, a return to normalcy, one filmmaker decided it would be more suitable to represent the decline of the protagonist's mental state. And so, in Deliver Us from Evil, they used this exact same sound effect on 8 separate occasions. And to be honest, it was extremely effective at making me feel like I was also losing my mind.
Tell me you saw that.
So what?
But by far the most criminal of all, the one sound effect that immediately rips me out of whatever cinematic experience I'm having. No, it's not the drum roll, although that is very played out too. It's that fucking cat noise! I first heard it in Conker's Bad Fur Day, although it's been used in absolutely everything. This is the single most egregious case of sound effect overuse ever. It's in Inside Out,
Here.
Meet the Fockers, Les Miserables,
Filling up the...
Home Alone 3, Captain Marvel, Crank's Christmas, Weekend at Bernie's 2, Toy Story 4. You'd struggle to find a movie that it wasn't in. And the easiest and most obvious place to find it is in the awful cat-related movies like Cats and Dogs and Cat in the Hat. But bizarrely, the only cat-related movie I looked at that it doesn't appear in is in Cats. How? This revolting, warped, hallucinatory mental exorcism of a movie somehow managed to sidestep the trademark pitfall of including this horrendous cat growl. But to be honest, that movie is enough of an exhausting, diabolical pissfest. It's precisely one bad sound effect away from getting banned for crimes against humanity, so in this particular instance, I'm actually appalled that the sound wasn't included in the movie. They couldn't even fuck everything up properly. During my research into the origins of this sound effect, I was hoping to discover the name of the cat that was responsible for the original noise, which was recorded back in 1982, in the hopes that I could relish in the discovery that it's definitely already dead. But, to my absolute horror, this noise isn't a cat at all. It's the sound of a man impersonating a cat. This is the work of a chap by the name of Frank Welker. Frank is an absolute legend and is responsible for creating some of the most iconic character voices that you'll undoubtedly know, such as Scooby-Doo, Fred, Slimer, Baby Kermit, Raja, Abu, Station, Cujo, Curious George, Nibbler, Mogwai, Sharptooth, all of the Martians, Totoro, Yoshi, Megatron, Dragon, Bullseye, Pegasus, Shao Kahn, Horror, Barney Rubble, Dr. Claw, Goddard, and he was also the voice of ISIS. No, not those rubbish terrorists, silly. ISIS the cat from the Batman animated series. Basically, if you you were a child at any point in the past 40 years, you would have at some point loved one of the insane amount of characters that Frank has brought to life with his incredible vocal talents. And despite playing such a vast amount of iconic characters over a very lengthy career, working on over 840 different projects, he often goes uncredited, and so I don't feel too ashamed that I wasn't already aware of his entire body of work. He's even starred beside himself in The Cat in the Hat, in which he was cast to do the voice work for Nevins, the family dog, but the sound designer also needed various animal noises for use throughout the movie and actually opted to use that same damn cat noise that Frank recorded 20 years earlier. They had him right there in the fucking booth. They were already paying him. Just get him to record another one. Jesus, why do we have to hear this same fucking noise in every single movie forever? Just stop. Do a new one. Frank, if you're watching this, please, I beg you, do a service to everyone and just record an hour's worth of cat noises so that we don't have to listen to this same fucking growl over and over and over again. It's mind-numbing. Subscribe to my fucking channel. Thanks. Well, I'm glad that's over. This video was a ton of work. I've had to sit through hundreds of movies looking out for specific sound effects, and that was a massive undertaking, and now my mind is completely broken. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Avery, Swanson, Brain in a Cat, and Sophistic Autistic for helping me out by watching a few of these movies for research purposes. There's no way in hell I could have sat through any more movies in the past month, so these guys have really been a massive help. We also very recently hit 100,000 subscribers, which is a number that is so big I can't even comprehend it, but thank you. Yeah, thanks. I'll see you in the next one.